Michael O'Donnell, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for SunSolar Solutions. And I've asked my now friend, had been a colleague, but he's now a very good friend working for us here at SunSolar Solutions. We had a big need for somebody who knew the marketplace, someone who had contact with just about every sales organization in our space and who was well thought of. And there really one name came to mind, and one name kept coming up over and over again, and that was Chase Anderson, someone who knew that job, knew that space, reached out to him, and honestly, it started out on what felt good but sounded bad. That another company that I respect unbelievably had just got him to say yes to come on board. So, that I think that made me want you more, Chase, but it's been great having you select and come on board at SunSolar. I can't tell you how happy I am, and I appreciate you coming to sit down and just kind of have a conversation about where we are and where we're going.
Of course. Happy to be here. Chase Anderson, Vice President of Partner Relations at SunSolar. I've been here for almost 3 months. And it's been a ride and been the best decision I've made, and far and away the best company that I've worked for in the solar industry. I've been in the industry for a few years, and what's exciting about the solar industry to me is, as far as we've come and as big as this industry is, there's still so much to do and still so far to go. So to be able to be partnered with, in my opinion, the highest quality installer in the country was a no-brainer decision for me, and to get the chance to be mentored by Mike and to learn from him and how he's accomplished what he's done, I mean, that made the decision really easy.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Nice of you to say, but let's just jump into some crazy stuff right off the bat.
Sure.
Yesterday, you and I are in a room with the Arizona Corporation Commission. I was super glad to have you by my side because a bunch of the industry was there, and they all know you. Some of them know me, but everybody knows who you are because you've interacted with them in that capacity of, hey, who you're partnered with. So it's great to have you running our partnership effort. But what was that like being in the room in the Arizona Corporation Commission, and we're finding out that like an incoming asteroid may be taking out solar in Arizona in the form of violent change in how the regulatory thing works for the utilities here in Arizona?
One, it was unsettling. I would say that was my first feeling. The second thing I would say is I was a little disappointed in the lack of companies that were there with a presence. Because how many companies are in the solar game in Arizona, are providing a livelihood to their family, and I only saw a handful of companies there that were realizing how big of an impact this was going to have if there was going to be a 37% reduction?
Yeah, so the rate that the utility is forced to pay the customer for their power they export to the grid is set by the state in cash. And for whatever reason, there's been this rationale that number should drop by 10% every year, while the utilities price for the same commodity on the other side of the meter goes up every couple of years. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but that's because the utilities have lots of consultants and lobbyists and advocates that they spend a lot of money on. The consumer doesn't have anybody.
Right.
And so it kind of comes to us. I mean, it really became crystal clear to me yesterday, as it has become that way over the years, that if you're going to be selling solar, you can't just sell it to the consumer. You need to sell it to the community. You need to sell it to the state. You need to sell it to the local environmental people, the consumer that isn't getting solar, that this is good for everybody. This is going to have a profound beneficial effect on this local tiny place that we call Arizona. If every single solar system means Arizona doesn't need to spend 250 or suck up 250,000 gallons worth of water out of the ground or the reservoir because we need to, burn it up at the power plant, that's going to have a huge impact on a desert. And that has a huge value to a desert. And then to have utilities convincing state regulatory boards that the value is almost nothing. And by the way, it should be lower. We should sell power for 30 cents, but the customer should get 3. What the F? How are these people that are being hired by us? We voted them in. They're our constituents. The job of a regulatory board is to overcome the problem that the utility is a monopoly. There's no free market forces. And so the regulatory boards are supposed to intervene on the fact that if somebody didn't have any competitive forces, they just charge whatever they want.
Right.
But on the other side of the meter, the customer's charging the environment, the community, the grid, and the utility for a valuable commodity that they've invested in capital equipment to produce, and somehow it's a subsidy to pay them for it. And that there should be this massive delta in California. We just saw that happen. It was one-to-one net metering, so customers were getting about 40 cents for their power. And then overnight, regulatory money, powers, all this stuff happens, and now the customer's getting like 4. Like, how did that value drop from there to there? That means we as an industry are not doing what we need to do to articulate the value of solar, not just to the utility. They're not happy we're competing with them, but to the community. What's the value of having distributed generation, less emissions, not needing the water, participating in the supply so we don't hit brownouts? So I'm off on a rant. Hard for me, but to get to be with you yesterday and make that case, it was a crazy day, was it not?
It was a crazy day, and where you're hitting on some really key points relative to environmental impact, social impact. You know, I also want to, stand on my soapbox and say, what about the potential job impact if something like that passes?
8,000 jobs were represented in that room yesterday. Green energy jobs.
And I like working in solar, and I would be naive to think that if something like that passed, it wouldn't cause attrition or a reduction in some of the workforces that our local installers and sales organizations provide.
Yeah, look at the stream of people coming from California into Arizona, Texas, whatever. Green jobs are leaving because they've made a regulatory shift based on powers that be and who's getting paid, et cetera, et cetera. To be in that process yesterday was it was kind of invigorating because the board saw all these solar people there, and we had like 20 people there. They were like, they're still like, are these guys carrying pitchforks?
We normally have 4 people attend this meeting each week, and today there's 400.
Yeah, there's usually 4 people when we're talking about drippy faucets. We got to plant some trees. That was kind of weird, wasn't it? Sitting in a meeting.
Very weird.
Where they're talking about drippy faucets and how many shade trees are going to get paid for by this whatever program.
But what I felt really proud about in yesterday's meeting was how much attendance there was from SunSolar.
Yes, CEOs there, VPs there, correct. You're there, directors,
sales representatives that are there, leaders, and then multiple representatives from.
And then Marco, the brand new sales guy who just had his first sale, gets up there, gets to the microphone of Channel 12 News. They're featuring Marco from Serbia. He's the highlight of the newsreel. I'm like, whoa, there's some really interesting things coming about here.
Yeah, but SunSolar, we had a lot of time at the mic in front of our corporation commission, and then on the news. So SunSolar is not passively sitting by while state legislators make decisions that are not in the best interest of our economy, of our environment, of just the whole industry that is solar that has provided so much to families and to homeowners alike.
I'll tell you what, you cannot overestimate the value of showing up, which causes proximity, which bumping into things gives you information that there's no way you would have had. Right. This meeting's going on and on and on and on. They're deliberately making, 100 of us show up at 9 o'clock in the morning and they're telling us that they're gonna have our agenda item come up. They move it to the very end, hoping all of us will leave, which we didn't. But to see the shenanigans going on in that regard, but that proximity caused me to be in the hallway talking to the lawyer from the lobbyist group, Arizona SEIA, which we're very involved with. Yep. One of the reasons the regulated utilities get their way is they get involved. They're not involved, they're obsessed. They're paying lots of money for big-time smart consultants and lobbyists and guys who are going to make their case in that weird little room. There's a way to do that, and if you know how to do it, it's going to be more effective. They're involved. They're not involved. They're driving the bus. How is the fox driving the hen house bus? We're the hens. We're the ones that need the protection, and the fox is the one driving the bus because they're paying attention. They're paying for lobbyists and lawyers and all that kind of stuff. So, we have done more of that as a company. So we have a lobbying organization called Arizona SEIA. The big national enterprise group is called CS, Solar Energy Industry Association, and the Arizona chapter of that. We invest in that. We spend money on that. We go to the meetings. Val, our CEO, is chairing one of the committees, and that committee happens to be the Consumer Protection Committee. Like, we care that our competitors are selling solar and not representing it, so the customer understands they're still going to get a pretty sizable bill from the electric company based on the small solar system that they sold. And we care about that. So we're involved in that. And so when those things are coming up, bam, we're in the room, we're showing up, we're making a difference. I'm out in the hallway talking to the lawyer, and I go off into a little side room, and in the side room comes Joe Dana. And I'm like, I feel like I know this guy. Oh, he's the Channel 12 News dude. I'm like, why are you here? I'm covering this. Oh, nice to meet you. Sit down. I get to talk to this guy for an hour because I'm in the hallway about our view, our impression of what's going on. He does the story, sits through the whole thing, and that channel news story is what I think, what we think. It's our version. We got to have the narrative on Channel 12 News last night because we were in the building.
I think there's a lot of companies that miss the opportunity to have a voice. And SunSolar wasn't going to miss the opportunity to have our voice.
I thought they were going to feature me, man. They just interviewed me in the hallway. And then all of a sudden, Marco from Serbia is this guy on the podium that they quoted on TV.
I'm so pretty face.
I'm so excited and so happy and proud of him. Young guy in his 20s showing up, and he wants to get up to the lectern and talk to these 60-year-old board of director guys. And he's like, I think you should know more and do better. I'm like, holy shit, you're not supposed to say that. And then it's on the news. And then the news leads with solar being attacked in Arizona, disaster averted.
Yeah.
That's our narrative.
Correct.
If we weren't there to tell our story, nobody was going to tell it for us. And
yeah, I think within the first 5 minutes of the meeting, the Myers
Yes.
immediately withdrew his proposed reduction.
He did, yeah.
So just by seeing probably the amount of bodies in that room,
Never mind.
I retract my previous statement.
Right. But they also know the process, so they head faked us, acted like they were going to pull it and then postpone it till October, which we're happy about. But really what they did was pull it, and they put in another one right behind us that was almost as bad. And they thought we would leave and that they would vote on the one that was almost as bad. And somehow the lawyers, we all figure it out. We're like, we ain't going anywhere. We're going to stay right here. And when they came to the meeting and they still saw us sitting out there, they go, we're going to vote on this amendment to do way worse than we said we were going to do. They said, man, this could be bad. These guys came with pitchforks. They're pissed. They're up in arms. Is that what they said on the news? Solar industry up in arms. And so what did they do? They dismissed themselves to executive session so they could have a conversation not in front of us. And they came back out of that room and said, yeah, we're going to take that amendment down too. And we're going to go back to what has been planned and back to what we've always expected. And that was a huge, huge win. I was excited to get a chance to share that with you and everybody this morning. What was that like this morning, kind of having that conversation with, everybody in the room?
It felt like a massive victory. We were joking before, like this passes. We all looking for homes in Nevada?
Yeah, we're moving to Nevada. Arizona Solar taken out by an amendment.
Hey, honey, we're going to get to stay in Arizona.
Yeah.
The place that we love to live. I'm still going to be able to have a job here, so that's good news.
Good news, honey. Yeah. We're not moving.
That was the feeling, just a massive win, but also just felt encouraging to be a part of the fight with SunSolar. So
it was great to have you. Great to have you in the room, and it was great to have you in this room this morning with the team as we sort of got reinformed and reinvigorated, a little bit of celebration, and then out to sell against this 6-day deadline. Arizona homeowners have less than 6 days to go solar before the buyback rate changes. They ended up voting on the original proposition, which happens every year, which is the buyback rate drops 10%.
Right.
Now, them wanting to drop it 40% was literally a disaster. We averted that disaster, but in 6 days, the price drops 10%. You don't get solar. If you go solar now, today, see me today, go solar today, we'll get you grandfathered in so that you have this buyback rate that your neighbors have grandfathered into it. Otherwise, September 1, you get the other one, nowhere near as good.
So you're saying you should go before these next 6 days?
You need to do it today.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about, that the ability to transfer the confidence and conviction to that customer, to give them the ability to pull the trigger, which enables them to receive the benefits of solar, is something that is building in momentum or being torn down with devastating feedback from customers that they're just not happy with what I sold them. And over time, I start to become afraid. When I'm in a company that's producing unhappy customers, I become more and more afraid to answer the phone. And then I become less and less effective at that moment of truth when the customer needs me to, transfer that confidence and the conviction.
I think people can tell when you sell something with conviction.
I do too.
So now as I'm talking to dealers that are here in Arizona, now that I'm not, talking to a nationwide network as much anymore, I feel that conviction back. I feel that confidence in everything that I'm doing and saying. And I've even heard friends of mine that have known me in this industry the whole time tell me that they can tell I feel different. I've got a different energy here at SunSolar.
And they hear it, they feel it, it lands. Like, I know this is a good, I know this is a good development for you. You're going to be very happy with this, and it lands, it sticks, because you actually feel that way and you know it. I've known you for a long time, and was always happy to run into you when you were at Titan. I knew you were doing a good job for them of creating relationships, creating partnerships with dealers and other types of partners. I can't tell you how excited I am that we've been able to have you consider and join SunSolar. We've now been together here. You've been working at SunSolar Solutions as our Vice President of Partnerships. To know each other out in the marketplace as colleagues, and then to have the conversation about coming together. What were your thoughts as we started thinking about that?
Well, one, I was probably trying to keep my poker face on to not make you see how excited I was that SunSolar would consider bringing me on board. But I think I've told you this moment before. As soon as I saw the phone ring and it says Michael O'Donnell, it's a feeling where it's the Tom Brady of solar calling.
You're already hired. You don't need to say stuff like this. Come on.
But no, and one thing that I've learned in business, I guess, and this precedes even solar, you always take the meeting. And I had a moment where I was actually planning on moving in a different direction.
Because you had bad news for me. I'm like, dude, bro, somebody brought your name up, and I thought, of course, Chase Anderson, he's the perfect guy. Let me call Chase. And bad news was I just made a decision, and I feel good about that decision. But I'm not going to not take a call from Mike O'Donnell. With some marquee name solar company that you just accepted. And I'm like, oh.
And I think people get engaged, and engaged people don't always get married. Sometimes that happens. But that company or that moment in time, those are great people there, and I'm rooting for nothing but that company's success. But the thing that I'll tell you that made me feel that I knew I made the right decision is when I was toiling over that opportunity, sleep was uneasy. And I was just kind of asking myself a little, in the back of my mind, am I making the right decision? Right. Does everything check the boxes I'm looking for? But the night that I accepted the position with SunSolar, I slept like a baby that night. And
I thought you were saying the opposite. I was like, oh, I'm always glad to know I've put a question to somebody and they lose sleep over it. But what you're saying is you weren't feeling that settled, and then we started talking and you decided to come this way, and all of a sudden you fell in place and you're sleeping well. Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah. If that's not an indication of you knowing you made the right decision, I don't know what is.
Well, I know, not being someone who's afraid of hearing the word no, and you saying, well, I just literally in the last day or so accepted a position with a marquee named solar company. I'm like, so you're saying I got a chance? So that led to the conversation. What was, your thoughts, meeting with me, meeting with Val? Is this something I really want to represent and promote in the marketplace?
What I'll say is, what you guys had built and the reputation that SunSolar had established, I already knew well before the conversation happened. And to me, that is the real win for SunSolar, because you're already known for being the best, having the highest quality, putting the customer's priorities over everything else. So you guys had already built that reputation. So I think to meet with you and to meet with Val was just basically to add to what I already knew about you from the outside looking in. Then to have the opportunity to meet with you guys in person, hear you walk me through the vision, the past, where the future was headed, and the vision that you guys had built together. It just felt like, man, this is a natural fit. I think my only concern was, hey, we're focusing on one state, and I've worked at companies that have a nationwide presence.
Right.
And then to hear, well, we're not settled at just staying in Arizona.
Yeah.
We've got plans to be in Nevada, plans to be in Texas, plans to be in Florida.
Which is one of the reasons precisely why we thought we needed someone like you in that position, and we're excited to have you actually take the position.
Yeah, and
growing nationwide.
I think like attracts like, and I think we're seeing at this time in the industry, there's a lot of aggregation or consolidation of people that, instead of maybe historically where I think a lot of dealers were red line chasers. I think we've all talked to them. Just comes down to an X's and O's of what's the number. You're seeing that installers that have been red line providers and giving whatever low number that they feel they can accommodate just to earn a dealer's business. That only lasts for so long before you realize, if a bad operational process is combined with a great red line, it doesn't work. You cannot sell past a bad operational process.
So I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Because I've been working for a company that has created a great operational process, and I've not had the displeasure of working for somebody or working for a company that created bad reviews, bad experiences. So I really don't have any personal experience with that. Obviously, I'm constantly talking to people that are, and I think that's one of the reasons we have such a great opportunity in this marketplace, is to bring that to the market. What do you know firsthand what people are experiencing out there? What's it like for someone out there trying to run a sales org and sell solar, being coupled with maybe a company that does have that happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that a dealer's taking on, right? So you're trying to provide culture, you're trying to provide a sales infrastructure, you're trying to provide training. You're also then doing the nuts and bolts of a business of your having to buy equipment for your guys, and you're having to process payroll, and wait, I need to have company insurance. Like, you're thinking about all these things, and you're trying to build that into a model that allows you to be competitive with the profitability that you feel you need to make to run your organization, and what you need to give to your reps to be competitive with what's being thrown out there in the marketplace for competitive red lines. So I think by design, we've created an industry where people think they just need to chase price. And people have, and people still do. But then when you realize everything that you're doing to try to sell a homeowner the value of going solar either wins or fails with how good the back-end operations are, that's how you get paid.
The actual product.
The actual product that gets a...
It's not like anything could go wrong, is there? I always tell customers that are kind of looking at the cheap guy and us, and so we're a little bit higher than the cheap guy. Well, essentially what you're doing is hiring someone to make 100 holes in your roof. And, you might not want the cheap.
It's construction. What could go wrong?
Yeah, we just got guys on the roof drilling holes, and, let's see, hopefully this works out well.
Yeah.
And apparently there's some opportunity there for it not to go well, this is what I'm understanding.
Evidently there is, and I would say that while your experience is limited to who you've used for installers in your career, I guess the phrase might be that even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Like, you found the nut of being the best installer for your entire time in solar. in SunSolar.
Yeah, I'm the only guy in solar I know that started at one company and is still at that company and has done, tens of millions of watts of solar, never thinking, I wonder if I could make a nickel more.
Yeah.
If I had to make a nickel less and the customers were even happier, would I do that? And the answer is, yeah, I would.
You're an anomaly, I'll say that, but for the rest of the industry, when you want to go nationwide or you want to use a platform that links you to a nationwide network, and I've had two different experiences with that. I've worked for a nationwide installer and I've also worked for a nationwide tech platform. And what I'll tell you is it was underwhelming for me to see the lack of quality install options that are out in the space. And there are a handful of companies that I think are doing it. They're doing it the right way, or what I like to call the SunSolar way. But more often than not, the experience is you don't know how efficient your installer is in getting a job from signed contract to install, or really we should be saying the PTO.
Or how much of my time they need to make that happen.
Correct.
And that's what's always been my concern, is that if I went to another company and it didn't have the processes in place that SunSolar had, and that if it started consuming 10% of my time to call customers back and redo documents and worry about MPUs that weren't priced in and who the heck's paying for that, if it took up 10% of my time, I knew I would lose half of my sales.
Easily.
And if it took up half my time, I'd just be done and cooked. And I've talked to a lot of people that are working at companies that have X, Y, or Z installer, and the sales reps, energy and time is just consumed at a level I can't even contemplate, since I do none of that.
Well, think of this. You have sales engines that are highly trained, highly skilled, door-to-door sales guys that when they start running a dealer that's big enough, they have the financial resources to afford it, they've hired a thing that we call sales ops, which means I'm hiring a project manager to manage the project managers for the install company, because I'm so concerned about the way the process is continually going.
So you're adding layers of cost on something you're on top of what you're already paying for.
Yeah, to manage what the installer is supposed to be doing. And should be doing well, or at least when you signed a contract with them, they told you they were doing it well. But then you find yourself wanting to control the customer experience. Now I want to call the customer to protect the experience for them, because I know I can't depend on you to do this consistently. And then you're questioning how long it takes to get a design completed by the installer's internal design team, how many red lines they're getting back from the permitting office because they don't do the plan set correctly.
Red tag's not good. You come home from your solar install and there's a red tag on your garage door. You're like, oh no, the world's over.
And then you're questioning either how backed up their pipeline is, if they're a big installer, how long it's going to take to get an install date on the calendar. Then you're questioning what's the timeline going to be for my guys to go between an M1 and M2 payment. And then you're questioning if your guys are going to leave because your installer's taking too long to get a job to roof.
Speaking of payments, M1 and beyond, why is it that when I'm walking new sales reps through and giving them a tour and talking about the fact that we pay every Friday, that I've had people turn around to their buddy who's coming on board and they're like, yeah, we got this weird thing that goes on here. Every single Friday they pay us, and for some reason the paycheck is exactly what we thought it was going to be. I'm like, why do you got to say that?
Yeah, it's confusing when you just think the number should be the number, and when you sell the job at a certain PPW, you can do the calculation right there. Well, when an installer doesn't correctly assess the scope of work that needs to be done, or they're not really looking at the size of the main panel that the homeowner has compared to the size of the system that is going on the home, and a main panel upgrade is needed, but they don't give that to you up front or do the correct assessment of the home and what's needed to get solar on the roof, then you're hit with a post-install chargeback.
So now they need $2,000-$3,000 more cost in the job. Where does that come from?
Oh, it comes from your commission as the salesperson because they didn't communicate it up front.
No, that sounds like bad news.
Yeah, or if you don't know that a certain jurisdiction has a higher permit cost, if your system size is over a certain threshold.
Like Phoenix is much more than other jurisdictions.
Yeah, or Peoria, whatever it might be. Now you're getting hit with a post MP2 clawback. And as much as none of us want to accept the reality of how frequently it's happening, there's just a lot of installers that aren't appropriately assessing their cost at point of sale.
And I guess the reason I don't know that, I've never been in a house where I didn't have an engineer with me on the other side of a phone, Zoom, in the meeting that I'm in with the customer, assessing what is needed to have the correct solution. What is that solution going to cost? What's the electrical fit up to the house so the solar works? I've never sold a customer a job and had the office call me and say, yeah, there's an extra $1,000 of cost in there, or 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000. So I don't have any experience with that. And yet when I'm out there talking in the marketplace, it seems like everybody has that experience all the time.
Yeah, an installer that doesn't do a in-person site survey, how can they appropriately assess the amount of trenching that is actually needed if you need to do a ground mount? How could you do that without doing an in-person site survey? Right. You take a drone and you're estimating the amount of linear feet that you need to trench.
I'm eyeballing it as a salesman in the house, I don't know.
Yeah, so depending on how much your installer charges per linear foot of trenching, that right there could be $1,000 of extra cost that they didn't forecast correctly.
And I don't know that when I'm in the house. I've tried to recruit salespeople who are like feeling like they're handicapped if they're not going to be the one at the kitchen table sitting there doing the design. I'm like, what are you talking to the customer about while you're doing the design? I don't quite understand how that goes, because when I'm in a house, I got 10 times more things to say than I have time to say about what solar's going to do for them. I'm selling solar. It's annoying to me when I have to stop and just send a text to an engineer when he says, I need another picture of the pool sub panel. Like, I was selling solar. Sure. To then, pull up off of that and go do a, engineering function or a, site survey function to go do that in the middle of a pitch. I feel totally thrown out. I literally can't imagine sitting there, and part of my job is to do an engineering proposal solution while I'm at the kitchen table with the customer. But apparently that's what most of the industry does.
Yeah, and I have two thoughts on that. One, I think where the industry benefits so much from your expertise is you're providing what I would say is the most educational and informed sale to the homeowner about letting them know the real impact that they're doing to their own financial future if they aren't going solar today. Yeah. Now, not a lot of people are sitting at the table with the same education and conviction that you are, but that's why we have MOD University, for people that want to learn how to sell like Mike. But for an average salesperson to feel like they're the energy consultant, they've trained themselves, and we've enabled this in the industry. Well, you're the energy expert by actually getting a picture of the roof, putting 4 dots on the roof and showing the panels magically appear. But you're only as good as your tech is, and the tech is only as good as much as they know the local market. Does each tech platform know what the setbacks are on the roof line by jurisdiction? Yeah,
I have no idea.
So you might be putting 30 panels on a roof plane that can really only fit 22 because they're not taking the setbacks into consideration.
I've never had that happen because the proposal that I'm showing the customer has been done, checked, whatever, by an engineer who knows better. I am not an expert at engineering a solar solution. I'm an expert at explaining how solar works and making it so compelling that you want to literally just eat your hat. How am I going to do both of those at the same time in the same 1 hour? I don't even understand how that gets done.
But I think that's where SunSolar's closing a gap in the industry is, I think we've trained ourselves that we need to do the design, but that's only because you're not backed by an engineer doing the proposal for you like SunSolar's doing. So I think you would lose your mind if you were working at an average solar company today that was using a self-design tool that you had to actually stop what you're phenomenal and the best at in the industry, which is educating the homeowner on why they need to go solar, because now that time is spent doodling on an iPad. And that's where I think SunSolar's closing a gap, training people. You actually don't really need that.
So it's not theoretical anymore. You and I aren't talking about maybe doing this. We've been doing it. You've been here for a while now. You've been out in the marketplace. You've talked about this with plenty of solar salespeople and dealers and things. What's the reaction in the marketplace? What are you finding that they're hungry for, and how does this fit for them?
Where I see the marketplace shifting is dealers are starting to ask more than ever, what is the cost of getting quality? Because overwhelmingly, they're not experiencing a high level of quality with their installer. I'm also hearing dealers look for financial stability in their install partner, because something you haven't experienced in your time in the industry, but just because you haven't either been outside of SunSolar, or you haven't sold in a state where there's just another option that you've used, like many sales reps do these days, you have installers that don't pay.
I'm astounded because I haven't really had a lot of conversations with groups like you have over the years. I've had lots of conversations with individuals. So I've heard about people selling solar and not getting their last check and things like that. What I'm hearing all the time now is people who sold, a bunch of solar and were expecting $70,000 and got none of it.
Yeah, you might have an installer that withholds your pipeline.
Yeah.
Or you might have a dealer, like a sales dealer, that if you put in your 2 weeks notice or whatever, that you're going to be moving on to a different opportunity, they might withhold your pipeline. Or you might have an installer that is living paycheck to paycheck.
And all of a sudden they can't pay the bills.
And all of a sudden they can't pay the bill, and they're not going to not pay CED or the distributor. They have right of first refusal there. So now you've got to figure out if you're getting in bed with the right install partner.
And you find out, we're not getting the checks on Friday, it's going to be Tuesday. And you're like,
there's an issue with the bank. We're going to get it wired to you.
No. Okay, Tuesday doesn't come. So yeah, I don't have any experience with that, but I think also we're coming through, maybe not the other side, maybe we're in the middle of some pretty tough times for solar companies. The price and cost of solar's gone up 40% because of the interest rates and dealer fees. There were a lot of razor thin margins that were out there, and all of a sudden sales go down, expenses stay high, and we're seeing a lot of solar companies out there that are in pretty dire straits, and some of them just aren't around anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a thing where you're seeing a lot of solar companies rise and fall. And what I think the industry is moving towards is deeper partnerships with their installer. Instead of a lot of diversity, I hear a lot of the old dealers talk about being diversified in a market. I actually think dealers want to come to one solution, but be able to fully trust that solution to accommodate all the needs, not only by their process, but also by their market presence, and how many markets they're in, so that they know, I don't have to train my guys on 2 different processes with 2 different design tools, 17 different financing options, and 6 different panel options. I want to simplify, and I want to come to one place to make it easy for my sales guys to know how to sell one way, but that one way is the best way because it includes quality, includes great pay, consistent pay. I don't have to question my installer's reviews. That's a concept. I actually can use my installer's reviews to enhance the sale.
They're not finding out about the installer's profile and then all of a sudden canceling the sale.
Totally. So I think we're seeing a pivot in the industry to move more towards that. And what's exciting is that SunSolar is expanding its market presence. So not only is it going to be Arizona, but we're going to go conquer Nevada, Texas, Florida.
So one of the things that I expected when we were a sales org, and we were a sales org for the first couple of years and worked with a couple of different installers, coming from the IT industry, where I was for 25 years before my first solar stint back in the 80s, was that if you were going to make someone a dealer, or I became a dealer of another company, they were going to show me how to sell the product. That was sort of an expectation I had. I come into solar and I got nobody showing me anything. It's like people know a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and everybody's out there trying to figure out how to sell it. It never occurred to me that you would become a dealer for a product and somehow there wasn't a process to become better at selling it. So for me, that's automatic. What's your experience out in the marketplace, and do you think people are hungry? Is that something they're looking for, in addition to that you will install it all right, we'll partner together to figure out how to really sell the crap out of this thing?
Absolutely, and my experience at SunSolar has been unlike any other company, to where, if you're coming to SunSolar and you're self-sufficient, meaning you've already sold a ton of deals, you're an experienced, you're a seasoned vet in the space, we want to take that and we want to help make you better. We want to help even more on your solar knowledge of these local utilities and these jurisdictions, so you can be even more equipped in the home to be the most convicted salesperson that comes through their door, like sell like MOD. But for I think a lot of other dealers in the industry, it's, hey, set it and forget it. Hey, you said you're ready, said you're a dealer, you have an LLC, you said you had a group of 5 to 10 sales guys. Here's your red line, good luck.
You must know how to sell.
You must know how to sell, see on the other side of this.
Yeah, work it out.
And there's nothing that helps, what I would say, protect or kind of even incubate the dealer's experience to help them grow in a way that you want to see them sell. Like as an installer, you should have a vested interest in the way your partners are selling, how they're talking to the homeowner. But you don't have a lot of installers that take that initiative. So what makes SunSolar great, every Friday, sales training. I believe you do a daily MOD sales call.
Yeah, and it's been fun having you on that call. I got to tell you, it's been fun having you on board, because the thing I like to do most in the world is sell solar. Oh, wait, hold on, there's one thing I like doing better. And that is working with salespeople to help them learn how to sell solar. And I can't help myself. So to have an unlimited number of opportunities, because you keep bringing new relationships and new teams and new dealers, my job has become like 10 times more fun to just be able to interact with more people that are excited, interested to learn how to become, a megawatt, 2 megawatt, maybe we'll find a 3 megawatt sales guy. I mean, I can't wait to have somebody come in the door and say, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to learn, and then go at it and become a 3 megawatt sales, kick my butt, become a 3 megawatt a year guy. So I got to, I've really enjoyed having you come on board, because you've increased the number of opportunities to really be a service in my favorite way. So
what's been fun for me is people letting me know, like, I already have Mike's book. I've already read it. I'm like, well, do you want to have him sign it in person? And you've even made mention that that's a very unique feeling for you.
It is, yeah.
To meet a new individual that's already purchased your book, has learned from you, and then they're getting to meet you in the flesh, and I get to make the introduction, and they're texting me, thanking me, like, I can't believe you brought Mike O'Donnell to that meeting, or I had a cup of coffee with Mike. And that's a fun feeling for me, because people see what you've created, people see what you've accomplished, and people aspire to that. And so it's easy to sell you, and it's easy to sell SunSolar. So similarly, it's made my job way easier.
Yeah, well, my vision is not to be the only guy that does 2-3 million watts of solar a year. My vision is to be working with a group that has hundreds of people that are selling a megawatt, 2 megawatt, and find those, Tom Brady's out there that are going to do 3 megawatts. Let's post that stuff up. Let's go. That's going to happen. For sure. So, right now we're sitting in a scenario where the last 7 years we've had 3 million people go solar. So high five solar industry, you sold 3 million units in 7 years. The federal government, per the IRA and the EPA and all the things that are going on with the Green New Deal, they need us to sell 30 million units in the next 7 years. That's 10x. So we need more great guys. We need, talented, willing to work, and guys that want to make a lot of money. Come to SunSolar and work with SunSolar and partner with SunSolar, ready to go to work and take down a $1 million, $2 million income. And that's the experience that we've had, is being able to people that have that willingness, teach them, make them world class on the sales side, and go with them and just have them transition from where they are to being the type of salesperson who ends up on stage with, megawatt awards. And
3 golden doors. We had anybody with 3 golden doors yet?
One guy that nobody wants to talk about because nobody believes how he did it, but no, not really. Not somebody who year after year after year did that. We're waiting for someone to emerge. That will be, I'm not the Tom Brady. There'll be a Tom Brady. And that guy's going to do 3 megawatts a year like it's just nothing, cutting through butter. But find somebody who wants to do that, man, I can't wait.
It's exciting.
Awesome. Chase, man, thanks for coming aboard. Thanks for being with me.
Yeah.
Let's get to work.
Let's do it.